Tonight on CFTK-TV News, we take a look at the new RCMP detachment in Prince Rupert. A BC First Nation brings trespassing issues to the courts, and contention between Conservatives as they're dividing on tackling Trump's tariffs.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday, February 26, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. We begin tonight with our news local to the Northwest. The Prince Rupert RCMP will have new infrastructure available sometime this spring after 2 years of planning and construction. CFTK-TV's Damien Smith has more.
At the corner of McBride Street and 3rd Avenue East, the Prince Rupert RCMP will now have a new building in the next couple of months. And according to Mayor Herb Pond, this has been a very long-term project.
I was in the mayor's office 20 years ago, and the federal government was pressuring us then to say, you need to provide a new facility.
The local community of over 12,000 citizens had to pitch in with taxes towards this building, and his team had to take out a loan as well for this $25 million project.
Thankfully, they've been also very creative at finding the money to do it in a way that really hasn't directly impacted taxpayers. It's taken other opportunities away, unfortunately, but it has not really hit taxpayers in any significant way.
The construction of the new building originally started over 2 years ago, when while there's no word out yet on the official move-in date, the mayor wants this building to be here for the years to come. Inside the soon-to-be old building on 6th Avenue, a priority of need was to fix the tolerance on jail cell doors for officer and prisoner safety.
And when you walk through it, you begin to understand how much different the facilities today are from the demands of the past. Some of that's, in fact, technology and the changes in technology, but also in what people have learned around the safest ways to, every time there's an incident somewhere, there's a review, and the review results in some sort of different understanding of how things might be done better.
And the next related building to tackle is the Prince Rupert Fire Department, where he'll have to turn to the provincial and federal government, where the city will have to muster up approximately $400 to $450 million of asset replacement and upgrading. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damien Smith.
A BC First Nation has brought trespassing issues to the attention of the courts, saying the RCMP is failing to enforce the band's residency and bylaws. CTV's Ben Milger has the story.
Visitors to the remote coastal community of Bella Bella must arrive by plane or boat and leave the same way. The problem is not everyone who overstays their welcome is forced to leave the Heiltsuk Nation's reserve.
Our bylaws are laws recognized by Canada and BC, yet the RCMP is not enforcing them.
Elected Chief Marilyn Slett and hereditary leaders say some people living on or visiting the reserve of 1,200 people endanger the safety and well-being of others by dealing drugs and engaging in violence, including sexual assault. They accuse the RCMP of failing to enforce trespass orders issued by the nation in accordance with its bylaws.
The first victims are women and girls in regard to assaults. And elders are at risk with home invasions.
A lawsuit brought by the Heiltsuk against the Attorney General of Canada accuses the RCMP of discrimination, saying officers do enforce trespass orders in non-Indigenous communities and on behalf of private land and business owners. Sled says the alleged inaction serves to embolden predators, leading to intimidation of victims.
Given the risk of violence and the improbability of action, witnesses are reluctant to agree to testify, to press charges, or even provide basic facts to the RCMP.
Sled says the nation has been trying unsuccessfully for years to reach an agreement on the issue with police. The lawsuit asks the court to force the RCMP to enforce the band's residency and trespass bylaws, setting a precedent for other First Nations reserves.
Our hope is this changes the the relationship between RCMP and Indigenous communities, not just for Helsik, but for all communities.
Although not named in the lawsuit, BC's Ministry of Public Safety says it is working with Canada's Attorney General to address the issues raised by the Helsik. The federal AG now has 21 days to respond. Ben Milger, CTV News, Vancouver.
New rules for landlords on short-term rentals have some asking to be exempted. CTV's Shannon Patterson explains.
Most people who bought in the Janyan building in Victoria saw the micro units as an investment that they could legally list on short-term rental sites like Airbnb.
A city like Victoria had approximately 600 short-term rentals that were licensed through the municipality that were operating as a short-term rental, and it was a lawful operation.
But under the province's new short-term rental law, in major cities it's only legal to list principal residences or secondary suites. Owners at the Janyan have been forced to find a long-term tenant for a unit that wasn't built for that purpose.
This is someone's property that they purchased, they worked their entire life for. It doesn't make sense for someone to come in and tell them what to do with it.
So the West Coast Association for Property Rights filed a lawsuit asking the BC Supreme Court to carve out an exception for owners who bought purpose-built short-term rental units before the new law was introduced. On Tuesday, that court challenge was dismissed.
Our group is deeply disappointed.
But the housing minister is elated.
Our goal around short-term rentals was to get more housing available for people in our communities, and it's working. Rents are coming down. Every month we've seen rents come down. We're seeing an increased amount of housing supply, so we're pleased the Supreme Court made that decision, and we can continue on with our work.
In throwing out the lawsuit, the judge said it was premature and left the door open for a further court challenge.
There's many options still on the table for understanding. I mean, we've constructed an argument. Obviously, an appeal process is an understanding of a pathway that we could continue down.
The owners will keep up the legal fight, but the province shows no sign of backing down. Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
Coming up next, councillors aim to clean up the downtown east side. Thanks for staying with us. New polling is suggesting Canadians are thinking differently when it comes to who they may vote for in the next federal election. The latest survey from Ipsos says if we had an election today, 38% of Canadians would support the Liberal Party, while 36% would back the Conservatives. The poll puts the Liberals in the lead for the first time in nearly 4 years, a shift from just 6 weeks ago when the Conservatives had a 26-point lead. Ledger's latest survey says the Conservatives still have a 3-point lead over the Liberals, but shows the gap is narrowing. And Vancouver's notorious downtown east side has been in the public eye of late, and city councillors are aiming to clean it up. CTV's Yasmin Gandham has more on the investigation into what's being done.
Vancouver's downtown east side has multiple government agencies, nonprofits, and other groups providing services and housing to that population. Now, some ABC councillors want to scrutinize them.
We're making investments with public money, and let's make sure those investments are being done intelligently and wisely.
City councillors have no jurisdiction over those agencies, so opposition councillors and even an ABC member voted against that idea.
Nothing will come from this. So what if we learn that an organization gets a certain amount of money for food programs and then from the city and gets a different amount of money for rent subsidies from the same service? So what?
The report they discussed was based on Councillor Bly's motion from 2023. The mayor wants to know how the money is being spent in his city.
I think transparency is incredibly important. This is something that shouldn't be feared.
A comment that raised some eyebrows considering a memo that was leaked Friday in relation to the downtown east side. It included developing the area and a plan to discuss Indigenous residents from the area moving back to the reserves. City staff insists the, quote, confidential document was meant to generate discussion.
And doing things behind closed doors do not inspire those qualities. So now we have it out in the open, we can finally talk about it.
A lot of these kind of internal memos end up forming actual policies. So case in point, the recently announced VPD Operation Barrage was kind of articulated within this leaked memo and quickly became policy without any sort of public transparency.
The debate continues Wednesday with councillors discussing Sim's motion to halt new supportive housing projects in the city. Yasmin Gandam, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to the weather, it's been pretty wet across the northwest this week, and it's looking like that will continue for a while. Tonight on the north coast, expect about 20 millimeters of rain ending before morning, then cloudy with a 60% chance of showers. Some winds gusting up to 80 in exposed coastal sections, temperatures steady near 7. Over the next few days on the north coast, the rain will stick around for a few days but will stay relatively light. Temperatures sitting in the high of 7-8 degree range, overnight lows sitting a few degrees below zero. Tonight in the Terrace-Kitimat area, it's going to be a rainy evening with some winds gusting up to 40 kilometers an hour with a low of +3. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect more rain with the sun coming out towards the end of the weekend. Daily highs sitting in the 6 to 8 degree range and overnight lows sitting a few degrees above freezing, dropping to a low of 0 on Sunday. Tonight in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect it to be mainly cloudy with a 30% chance of wet flurries or rain showers overnight and a low of -2. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, it'll be mostly sun and cloud with periods of rain on Saturday, a high of 8 on Friday, getting incrementally colder over the next few days after that with a high of 4 degrees on Monday. Checking your highways around the northwest now. On Highway 16, there are strong crosswinds on Haida Gwaii, as well as slippery sections, fog patches, and water pooling from Prince Rupert to Cedarvale. On Highway 37, lots of slippery sections to watch out for, as well as slush and compact snow. On Highway 37A, there's bridge maintenance 8 kilometers west of Mesiadin. That's single-lane alternating traffic. On the Nishka Highway and Telegraph Creek Road, watch for slippery sections. Still to come, contention between Conservatives. As the race for Liberal leadership continues, advanced online voting wrapped up this morning with a strict verification process. And the Liberal leadership hopefuls are now aiming to ride any momentum they picked up in the debate straight to the ballot box. Here's CTV's Rachel Aiello.
I would say that I'm the candidate here that is the most distant from Mr. Trudeau.
The 4 candidates campaigning to become Justin Trudeau's replacement tried to distance themselves from the Prime Minister's record.
Trump is unleashed and empowered. As your Prime Minister, I will be too.
While positioning themselves as the best leader to stand up to both U.S. President Donald Trump and their main Canadian opponent.
Who's the worst person to stand up to Donald Trump? It's Pierre Poilievre. He worships the man.
All contenders also sought to draw contrast with their rivals, but the only one to land a few pointed jabs was Karina Gold.
I came to have a debate because I think that's not just what Liberals are looking for, but that's what Canadians are looking for.
The reluctance to go too hard at their other contenders could be because the Liberals don't want to hand Poilievre any fodder for future attack ads. Nanos' latest ballot tracking shows the Liberals have closed what just 1 month ago was a 20-point polling gap.
For all intents and purposes, it's a horse race right now and a coin toss.
Today, the Conservatives pounced on a comment Carney made in a post-debate scrum about the timeline of and his involvement in a decision to move the headquarters of an asset firm that he chaired from Canada to New York, around the time Trump started threatening tariffs.
We know that we can't trust
what Mark Carney says.
The voting period for the Liberal leadership race closes on the afternoon of March 9th. That night, the winner, chosen by a preferential ballot system, will be announced at a special event in the nation's capital. And then the countdown is on until the next general election.
Now to some contention within the Conservative Party as MLAs find themselves divided on how to tackle Trump's tariffs. Here's CTV's Rob Buffum.
BC Conservatives emerged from their caucus meeting defiant, putting a positive take on a vote where their party was divided.
What you saw for the first time in a long time was MLAs vote with their conscience and were given the right to vote the way they wanted. There is no fracture.
On Monday, 5 MLAs from the 44-member caucus didn't support an NDP MLA's motion to condemn Trump's threatened tariffs and to support retaliatory measures, including those targeting red states.
I'm completely against the tariffs, but I want to see better diplomacy from our leaders when it comes to other countries.
What I was against is signaling that we were going to go after Republican states and what that could bring back on British Columbia.
It's the latest sign of division for the party. Its leader, John Rustad, says he won't force members to align on issues, but rather to speak and vote their conscience.
At the end of the day, we said we would have free votes. We said we would be supporting people to be able to have free speech, and that's what this looks like.
Monday, an earlier fracture had emerged over social media tweets regarding evidence of children buried at residential schools. The party House leader was asked whether Rustad should intervene on such issues.
Something that our leadership, and I'm speaking specifically about John Rustad, is going to have to take a critical look at. Those are his decisions and his calls to make.
What family in this province doesn't have issues or divisions in it?
At a certain point in time, if this carries on, the members of the party won't want to live with each other. And one faction or another will leave the party, either voluntarily or involuntarily.
The party holds its first AGM this weekend. Its members bristle at questions Rustad's leadership could be in doubt.
Absolutely not. That's insane.
Rustad himself said there's no mechanism for a leadership change at the AGM, but expects a standard review in the next year. A year that's bound to be a wild one for the fledgling party and its leader. Robert Buffum, CTV News, Victoria.
Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index rose more than 100 points Wednesday, boosted by strength in the technology and base metal sectors, while U.S. stock markets muddled to a mixed close. The Canadian dollar dropped slightly. The price of gold rose $11.80. Oil was down 31 cents, natural gas dropped 17 cents, and aluminum dropped $17. The TSX rose by 124 points. The Venture Index gained 13 points. In New York, the Dow Jones dropped 158 points and the Nasdaq gained about 49 points. Still ahead, a life-changing surgery straight out of a sci-fi. A life-changing surgery is on the horizon for a North Vancouver man, and the medical technology being used seems like it's the storyline of a sci-fi movie. Here's CTV's Shannon Patterson.
So how do you guys feel about Thursday?
Brent Chapman is just days away from a surgery that could restore the vision he lost 2 decades ago.
I'm really excited to open another chapter of my life.
The 33-year-old massage therapist from North Vancouver has been blind since the age of 13, when a severe reaction to medication put him in a coma and damaged his corneas.
I think I've had 10 cornea transplants now in 20 years.
On Thursday, he's having another procedure at Mount St. Joseph Hospital in Vancouver that sounds like science fiction. It's called tooth-in-eye surgery.
In essence, we are trying to really just replace a clear window on the front of the eye, and the tooth is the perfect structure to hold a focusing piece of plastic or a telescope for the patient to see through.
A pair of surgeons who have perfected this very unique procedure in Australia will remove one of Chapman's canine teeth and glue a lens inside that tooth.
After we do the harvesting of the tooth, we implant it into the cheek so it gathers a tissue lining, and 3 months' time we remove it from the pocket in the cheek and sew it onto the front of the eye.
If we are successful in the surgery, which we all hope we are, and the patient's retina and nerve at the back of their eye are healthy, then they can recover close to normal vision.
The Tooth and Eye Clinic at Mount St. Joseph Hospital is being funded by the St. Paul's Hospital Foundation. It's the first of its kind in Canada.
My job as a surgeon, I'm cutting jaws, breaking faces, moving them, reconstructing faces, but people have a hard time fathoming what that actually means. So to tell them that I'm putting a tooth in the front of the eye is just, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
While his vision should be restored, Chapman's eye will look very different.
It won't look like a normal eye. It's covered with some buccal tissue from inside the cheek or the lip, and that will cover the whole structure. So the eye will look pink with a small dark circle in the middle.
You take function over appearance, and it's just going to open up so many more doors for me.
For Chapman, it's a real chance at seeing the world the same way he did before his coma.
There's a lot of things, bucket list things I want to do once, I can see again. And it would mean the world to me, really.
Shannon Patterson, CTV News, North Vancouver.
BC restaurants saw a boost in sales recently thanks to the Four Nations Cup final featuring Canada and the U.S. The BC Restaurant and Food Association says sales were up 60%. Despite the success, many establishments are reportedly still only hanging on by a thread, with restaurateurs calling on BC residents to support their local restaurants. Although it's often easy to let convenience trump quality, a new study is showing that in the case of our meals, choosing convenience can have a hidden cost. A study from the University of Montreal has tied ultra-processed food to more than a third of heart and stroke deaths in Canada. Delicious by design, but also deadly. Here's CTV's Heather Wright.
Delicious by design, but also deadly, according to new research.
So we know that these products are not of a good nutritional quality. We know that they're harmful to health. This study shows how much they're harmful.
Roughly 37% of all new coronary heart disease and stroke cases and 38% of all deaths from these diseases are related to the consumption of ultra-processed foods, according to a new study from the University of Montreal. Products that fall into this category include sugary cereals, chips, and candy. Items that are far removed from their original state. UPFs have little nutritional value and include ingredients that are difficult to pronounce. They differ from minimally processed or processed foods, which have fewer ingredients and include things like whole wheat bread and olive oil. Experts say ultra-processed foods are specifically designed to be overconsumed.
They have different characteristics that makes you eat more and more, so you will overconsume them compared to real food.
Still, dietitians say balance is key, and eating healthy doesn't mean passing on every potato chip.
We should always aim to get more whole foods in our diet, but we have to be realistic of what that looks like and not, get mad at ourselves because we're allowing our child to have a chip every once in a while. That's okay. What does the rest of that child's diet look like? That's going to be more important.
The study also found cutting back can make a real difference. If Canadians decrease their consumption of ultra-processed food by 50%, it could prevent 45,000 new cases of cardiovascular disease and 8,000 deaths every year.
That's our news for now. We'll be back with more at 6 and 11. Thanks for watching.